Today on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. We talk about Payton Wilson and how he can add an extra element to the defense with Patrick Queen. Will they redefine linebacker at the Pittsburgh Steelers? Joining me today is Alan Saunders from SteelersNow.com to talk about that. It's going to be a fun episode. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show in your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it. I have a competitive side, and I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go. It's the mobile hit twist on the classic game Monopoly, and you can join your friends and download Monopoly Go for free today on the App Store or on Google Play. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Alan Saunders. He had a nice week off. This man caught a shark on vacation. Alan, just gotta say, like, some people, we go and we hang out, we just go get a tan. Look like you got a little bit of tan on yourself. This man, you went and caught a shark on vacation. Even when you was taking time off, you was not taking time off.
I mean, I spent a lot of time at the beach, but yes, I did catch a shark on vacation. It's good. Biggest one I ever caught. That was nice. So
that's very cool. Let's get into today's topic. I wanted to talk about Payton Wilson because anyone who's watched this show knows that I've been a big supporter of Payton Wilson and thought he would be a heck of an addition to the Steelers. I did not think there was any way they would grab him in the late third round. I thought if they were going to get him, he was going to fall to the early third, and then they would take the chance there. They got him at that point of the draft. And to me, I think this has that is the perfect situation. The Steelers could have gotten a player like Payton Wilson with such a high ceiling, does pack an injury history. But Alan, you look at the Steelers linebacker situation. Patrick Queen's still your ace linebacker right now. Landon Roberts is your vet who can hold down the fort at the second linebacker position if Payton Wilson needs time to get up to speed in the NFL. And then you can see what happens with Cole Holcomb's injury. And then you have Payton Wilson, and maybe he's the third option, maybe he's the fourth, whatever. But to me, does the potential of having a Wilson and Queen linebacker combo for the next however many years, what does that say to you about the potential at this position that has just been so messed up since the Ryan Shazier injury for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because like in a lot of ways, I think Patrick Queen is kind of the guy that's going to be doing a lot of the, this is the guy that we've been waiting for. Like that's the guy. That's the star in this arrangement. And it's interesting because, usually, Patrick Queen is not the biggest linebacker in the world. He's very fast, extremely explosive. Usually when you have a guy like that, you want your other long-term piece to be, someone like Landon Roberts, right? When you had Ryan Shazier, you had Vince Williams, right? Okay.
Right.
Like, Payton Wilson is not that. He's not Patrick Queen either. He's not really anybody. And I think that was like sort of an under talked about part of his draft slide. Yeah, sure. The injuries are part of it too, but he's not someone that you can just pluck out of college and you just take the tape and you say, okay, you did this there, and all we want you to do is do it here. Like, you don't have that. You have a crazy athlete. Size speed combo is unheard of. But he's not like he didn't do a lot of man coverage. Well, I mean, look, if I'm looking at a 6'5" guy who runs fast, long anyway, like his short area explosiveness is not like exceptional. It's fine. But that's not what was like the eye-popping thing, right? It's a 40 time down the field. I would want him to be covering tight ends man to man, but he hasn't done it. So how good is he going to be at it? I don't know. Like, I think probably pretty okay, but we'll see. Can he stop the run? Absolutely. He's certainly good, but is he going to hold up to season after season of dealing with pulling guards and fullbacks and tight ends in the hole and all that stuff, right? I don't know. Is he look at Landon Roberts. Landon Roberts gets hurt at the end of last season, right? Plays through it, first of all, like the absolute warrior BAMF that he is.
Yeah.
But also look at like that guy missed a game in 3 seasons. Like playing the way that he plays. Okay.
Yeah.
So is he going to be that? I don't know. Like, he's certainly willing and tough enough and extremely tough. Like, there's no question about his mentality. I just think you very much have a very expensive diamond that has not yet been set into a piece of jewelry. Okay.
That's a great way to put it.
We know it's got a lot of potential, but it is not yet a finished product. And so I think it makes it really hard to say what the Steelers are going to have this year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. I don't know. We'll see. I think it's a great pick. It's a great piece. How exactly it all fits together, I think really it will be determined by how Payton Wilson adapts to doing things that he has not been asked to do in college.
I think that's certainly a part of it. And this is, again, why I think the Steelers are in a great position, because Landon Roberts can still be that guy who gives him time, like, hey, adapt, learn, you'll come off the bench and play in specific spots and then, figure out how you fit into the NFL. But to your point about, how rare of a specimen he is as an athlete to fit at linebacker, officially 6'3" and 7/8, 233. That's an amazing size for a linebacker. You compare, I pulled up the relative athletic scores comparing him to Ryan Shazier, just for a guy who's fast, hit hard, and very close in a lot of numbers. Ryan Shazier's relative athletic score is a 9.94. Payton Wilson was a 9.89. 40-yard dash time, Ryan Shazier 4.38. Granted at his pro day, but still, right, we know Ryan Shazier was fast. Payton Wilson, a 4.43. I will take it. That is lightning for a linebacker. That is amazing. Their 20-yard splits and 10-yard splits almost identical. Payton Wilson just edged him out by like 0.03 of a second in the 10-yard split. The one thing that Ryan Shazier has decently over him are his explosives in his vertical and his broad jump. But when it came to agility, Payton Wilson also just very slightly edged out Ryan Shazier in both the shuttle and the 3-cone drills. So this is an athlete here who possesses the ability to stop, change directions, to run at long speeds, and to hit hard, and to use his size to his advantage. And to me, that kind of upside, like you said, that is something, that is a diamond in the rough. That is a situation where if people are going to let that slip to you in the third round, you can mold that. If he doesn't work out, oh well, you missed on your late third round pick, but you took a shot at a great athlete who also, by the way, did have great tape. They had 3 interceptions. I mean, like, anybody who watched him, you listen to Brian Baldinger talk about Payton Wilson.
Award. He's probably the most statistically dominant linebacker in college football last year.
Yeah.
Like, he could do the job. It's just that he did not do the job that a lot of people in the NFL are going to be asking a guy with his measurables to do. It's interesting. And also, like, you have Patrick Queen, who's going to be doing a lot of the things that he did in college. Like, that's going to be Patrick Queen's specialty. So where does he fit around Patrick Queen? How do those two fit together? I think that's very much still TBD.
Absolutely. And that's where I think it's really interesting, because if Patrick Queen is like your typical MAC linebacker, we think of the MAC and the Buck. And if you go back to my last episode I did with Jim Wexel, we talked about this. Was, MAC and the Buck is the classic 3-4 linebacker. Your MAC's you're more athletic. You're Ryan Shazier, who can fly all over the place. Your Buck linebackers, your Vince Williams, I'm just here to pound you in the face. I'm here to just keep hitting you and hitting you and hitting you in the hole. But in today's NFL, it might behoove defenses to have a MAC and a MAC, with how much passing there is and needing that athleticism, while also needing guys to be able to put their nose in the hole. And that could be the potential for Queen and Wilson if they developed into a pair for a nice 4 to 5 year stretch. That would be, I could think, could be role defining and a huge answer for the Steelers defense in the middle of it, in a place that they've been looking for an answer since 2017.
I think it's really interesting because you look around the AFC North and, like, there are like Cincinnati, okay, they're going to play you with 3 wide receivers on the field every single snap of the game. The Steelers basically know they're going to play nickel the whole game. Wouldn't it be great to have 2 like tailor-made nickel linebackers? Okay. I still think you will want to have somebody like in Landon Roberts, so that when you play Baltimore and they want to put Patrick Ricard in the hole, and you got to have somebody to play the fullback, or you're playing some team with a 235-pound running back. Like, there are going to be those days where you're going to want a bigger guy than either Queen or Wilson is. But man, like, I think for the for the defenses that are for the offenses that are hardest to defend, for the San Francisco's, the LA Rams, I think having those two linebackers that can run in space and also both can deal with mobile quarterbacks. You could have, it's one thing to say, oh, we're going to put you on a spy. It's another thing for you to actually be athletic enough to run sideline to sideline with Lamar Jackson. They got two guys that can do it. So now, like, okay, if the Steelers go out there without, say, with Queen and E-Rob, well, okay, we know Roberts isn't going to spy, because look, he probably can't do it, right? And so, like, no disrespect, but like, if I'm the Ravens, I wouldn't think he could. So I'm not gonna have to worry about the defense like he could. But now you have two guys out there. It's like having another Minka Fitzpatrick. The more guys you can have that can do multiple of different things on the defense lets you be multiple while being boring personnel-wise. And I think that's what every defense wants to have. Every defense wants to throw the same 11 guys out there as much as they can and still be able to do different things. And I think that's really what it unlocks.
Absolutely. I want to talk about things that might get in the Steelers defense's way, because we can talk about a lot of things to be excited about the Steelers defense, but what are the things that could hold it back? We'll discuss that, as well as rising stars that could be coming in the defense, all next in the upcoming segments of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We got to pause to talk about Monopoly Go. And I know a lot of people are like, hey, man, Chris, you talk about Monopoly Go all the time. I know, right? Because it's a lot of fun. You can team up with your friends. You can play in time tournaments where your team of friends can build a whole city together and build up your entire board. And the more you win together, the more awesome prizes that you can unlock as a team. And there's so many different prizes to get. You can build up with all the different unique stickers to complete albums and get even bigger prizes. You can get cool new playing pieces to travel all the different boards with all the different crazy themes that Monopoly Go has. And then hilarious emojis to taunt your friends when you're destroying them in Monopoly, making them pay big rent, smashing their buildings, or heisting their vaults. You got to play Monopoly Go. It feels new, exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. And it's a ton that include unique mini games that including constantly changing tournaments. Like they give you options to dig for treasure or beat a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that can help you win big, massive multipliers for everything that you win, or even win with rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's get to the defense here. Now, I think something to point out that some people sometimes forget about with this Steelers defense, it's been very good for the past several years. It's the main reason the Steelers have made the playoffs, in the last two of the last three seasons. You look at what they've been able to do. Now, you look at their points allowed. They have ranked top 10 in points allowed in 4 of the last 5 years. The 1 year they didn't rank top 10 in points allowed was the year TJ Watt missed half the season. So they have been as close to, they've been if they're not elite, they're right up against being elite in this last run. So they have the core. TJ Watt's gonna be back. Alex Highsmith's gonna be back. Minka Fitzpatrick's gonna be back. And now we're talking about adding the linebacker, potential star talent at linebacker, which is the position a position that's really hurt them. But Alan, if you're looking at this and you're trying to say, okay, all that's exciting and everyone's excited about the offense and the changes that could come there, what are the weaknesses in this defense as it's currently constructed that could poke a hole in this and make this not a top 10 defense and hold them back this year?
Well, I think, to really get into that, you have to sort of figure out what's made them good, right? And what's made them good has been they get a lot of turnovers, and they turn scoring drives into field goals instead of touchdowns. Like their whole theory of defense is, did you watch Whose Line Is It Anyway? Drew Carey, little sketch comedy thing, right? His thing was like the points are made up and they don't matter. And the Steelers' defensive philosophy is the yards are made up and they don't matter. Right. The yards don't matter. All that matters is the points. Does not matter if you give up 98 yards and hold them to a field goal. That is an enormous win for your defense. It doesn't matter if you give up 3 points. Okay. And so you have this that is all tied together, right? So that they do this because they get off the field on third down. They get off the field on third down and they create turnovers because they get a lot of pressure. Okay. And so because they get a lot of pressure, their secondary, which honestly hasn't been very good the last couple of years, has actually not only been able to hold up, but get a ton of interceptions. Okay. Because they force quarterbacks into making bad decisions. And so I think, you mentioned it. Okay. What's the year it doesn't go right? Well, TJ Watt gets hurt. Okay. I mean, look, I think they have minimal pass rushing depth. I like Nick Herbig. He did okay in a spot sort of start last year. But if TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith goes down, is he going to provide their level of contribution? I'm skeptical. Cam Hayward and Larry Ogunjobi, Cam Hayward is going to be 35. Larry has had a long injury history. Like, I like Keeanu Benton. Is there another guy that is going to provide their level of pass rush from defensive tackle if one of those guys goes down? Doesn't look like it, at least not to me. Okay. And so I think they're thin there, and they're obviously thin in the secondary, right? I mean, Dante Jackson is kind of a stopgap fill-in, like you hope he can hold up. They don't have, Beanie Bishop, I guess, is the slot cornerback, or Josiah Scott or whatever. Like, they don't even have one. I think there's depth at corner on the outside. I like Corey Trice and Darius Rush as kind of long-term project kind of guys, but there's not really a ton of slot options there. I think they will add to that group. But no matter what they add to the group, like, I think we can acknowledge that this is not a cornerback group that looks like it should be a strength, despite the fact that Joey Porter Jr. was very good last year and will continue to be. So they will need, like, that. If they don't get the pressure, the secondary falls apart. Like, it's like the failures cascade, right? And so, and then they can't get off the field on third down. Then they're giving up touchdowns and not holding teams to field goals. And so I really think, like, that's the failure state, right? That's how it goes wrong, is if one of those big four guys, Larry, Cam, TJ, Alex, gets hurt and they are not able to maintain the pass rush, then what happens? And I think that's the scary part of this defense, because I think they need that to protect. Their secondary is not good enough to stand on business on their own and just be a top 10 defense without that pass rush in front of them. And I think that's the danger zone for them right now.
I feel you on that, especially because, like you said, all those defenses have been predicated on being able to dominate the line of scrimmage, whether it's stopping the run or stopping the run and getting to the quarterback. And
I think they can stop the run. Like, I think they can do that. I think they're better at linebacker than they have been in a long time. I think guys like Mon Adams and Dean Lowry are, like, good, solid interior depth, but they don't have the pass rush. Like, I think they can stop the run. I just don't know if they can hold up against the pass without that pass rush.
I think that's going to be really interesting to see, is how does that translate this year. Larry Ogunjobi, I think, was supposed to be a much better pass rusher last season than he was, and he wasn't. And Cam Hayward, with his injuries, he couldn't be the Cam Hayward who had 10 plus sacks 2 years before that last season. So there's a lot of concern there. I think that's legitimate. And if the Steelers aren't able to generate pressure from guys on the inside of the line, it's going to allow offenses to key off more on TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith to limit their production in games. I want to ask you this. You brought up, Nick Herbig. Should the Steelers just stop playing around and just go bring back Marcus Golden? Because to me, like, that would be, he was really good for you as a third option last year. You'd have basically the same edge rushing, four-man group from last season. He probably wouldn't cost you anything in free agency. And to me, that just seems like an obvious, like, help, where he's not going to change everything, but he's going to give you more depth there for, let's say, Highsmith or Watt has to miss a game, they could still be fine.
Yeah, like, the thing about Herbig is, like, I think he can pass rush pretty well, but, like, could he hold, like, he's a smaller guy for the position. Like, could he hold up to the 3-4 weeks of run defense? I think that's probably still more of an open question. The nice thing is, whether it's Marcus Golden or not, I think there's lots of guys out there that can still. Bud Dupree's still on the free agent market. I believe Tyus Bowser is still out there. So I think they could find somebody, even if it's not Golden, where they can add to the script. They need to. Like, they got Jeremiah Moon from the Ravens. They claimed him on waivers at the end of the year. I do know they like him, but I think I would want another body there at outside linebacker with some experience than just those two guys for right now.
I feel you also in the secondary because Dante Jackson, I think there's a potential for Dante Jackson to do better at the outside cornerback position than Patrick Queen did, for the Steelers, purely because I think that his speed will help there. But there's also potential for him to not do as well, to make mistakes, to give up big plays. He's just kind of an unknown out there. And if the Steelers have a player at the outside corner position who's getting toasted, it could lead to problems there and kind of unbalance what they're trying to put together here. And that's where I wanted to go with this segment, was where are the things that are most are the biggest question marks of this defense. And I think you and I agree that the extra pass rushers on top of the edge rushers up front who can generate that. I agree with you. I actually think stuffing the run could be a better thing for the Steelers this year, not just with the linebackers that they've added, but also Deshaun Elliott, I think, will be an asset in that department. I think that they can do a lot with that. They'll have a rotation of linebackers again this year. I also, another guy that I don't think that they should turn their backs on is maybe bringing back Quan Alexander, because I saw a clip of him training and he looks like he's back up to speed. Bring him in training camp again and be like, hey, want a job? You can be, and that way, if Cole Holcomb never recovers, guess what? Now you got 4 linebackers ready to go again, and that could be a really good situation. But if you're looking at that there at either the second cornerback spot or the slot cornerback spot, but those two weaknesses is at covering and that those extra pass rushers we're talking about, the Steelers, if they can just make those neutral territory, like places that just don't, they may not be super assets to the team, but they're not ways that they're getting cooked week in and week out. I think that's how they overcome any obstacles and they can stay a top 10 defense in 2024.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's the big question mark. Can they stay healthy with their important, sort of irreplaceable, right, pieces, like, TJ, Cam, Alex, and also, can the secondary hold up? Man, look at Cincinnati. Add Jermaine Burton to what they got already, and Chase and Higgins. Are you going to sit here and say you're comfortable with Joey Porter Jr., Dante Jackson, and I don't know, pick another corner to be the slot against those three? No. I'm taking the Bengals 3 out of 3 in those matchups. And I think Joey can hold his own, certainly, but that's tough. And there are other teams. Maybe the Bengals might have outside of the Seahawks, maybe might have the best wide receivers in the country, but there are other teams that can go 1, 2, 3 like that can cause problems that I'm not sure the Steelers have answers for, especially if they're having a hard time getting to the quarterback. But I think if there's a place where they can still do business, I think outside linebacker and slot corner are absolutely the two places where if they could find a way to upgrade this team between now and the start of the season, that's where I'd be spending my efforts.
There you go. I want to talk, though, about the rising stars on this defense, the guys that could become those difference makers at key positions for the Steelers that make this maybe not just a top 10 defense, but a complete elite defense if they take the right steps up this year. We'll talk about that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you that this show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. With it being playoff time in the NBA and the NHL, and also with baseball in full swing, there's no better place to place all your bets on every single game than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed with your first bet, win or lose. That's $150 to use on point spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. You can bet on anything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all in an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and you'll make your first bet an automatic win. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon for new customers to get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's talk about the young guys, or at least the new guys that could emerge as serious players for this defense. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you had to rank 3 in order of 1 to 3, 1 being the most likely, 3 being, if 1 being the one that you think has the best chance of doing it, but 3 players, who could step up to be star level players for the Steelers defense this year that aren't star level players. So like exclude TJ Watt, exclude Minka Fitzpatrick, exclude Cam Hayward, and I even say exclude Alex Highsmith because I think that he's had his double-digit sack seasons. But we're talking about guys that are either new to the team, whether it's Patrick Queen or Payton Wilson, or guys who are up and coming for the team. And you can also throw Deshaun Elliott in that conversation, but also guys who are like Joey Porter Jr. or Keeanu Benton. If you were to rank them from 1 to rank a top 3 from 1 to 3, where would you put those rankings as far as who can be the best chance to become a rising star for this defense?
Well, I'm going to throw Patrick Queen out right away. That guy's already a star.
He's already a star. There you go.
He's already a star. I'm going to go with Keanu Benton 1. I think he has the potential to be so much more than we saw in his first year. I love his pass rush upside. He hasn't really shown a lot of it yet, but I think he was one of their better defensive linemen last year. I honestly thought they could have played him a little bit more. And so I'm excited to see what the next step for him is. I think he's poised to be something very good. Look, I think Joey Porter is interesting to me because he's already played so well. I don't know that I would call him a star, right? Like, I mean, it's not like he was a Pro Bowler or anything, but he was very close to that level, I think, by the end of the season. I wonder if he's the kind of guy that will, continue that rise, or if there's going to be a plateau, because I think he does have like the handsiness, right? Like that's got to get cleaned up before I think he can really become a next level corner. And, but I think he's already very good. So I don't know that he has the same, like he doesn't have as far to go as like Keanu Benton does in terms of like how much more he has to give. But he certainly has the potential to still be a really good player. And the third one I'm going to throw out here is Corey Trice. Man, he's a guy I think a lot of people have forgotten about. Look, this time last year, I'm watching dudes in rookie minicamp and OTAs, and I'm still trying to learn numbers. And like 3 or 4 times, I was like, "Oh, who was that again? Oh, that was Trice, huh? Oh, he's better than Joey, huh? Like what? Really? I'm not making that up. Like that happened. Okay. And so now look, I think Joey made huge strides over the course of his rookie year. And, Corey Trice coming off an injury is going to have a tough, that's tough. That's hard to do. But I think he has the potential to be the Steelers' number 2 cornerback of the future. And if you're talking about going from a guy who didn't play at all and was a 7th round pick to being that, well, that's a long way. I don't know that he's a star. I don't know that he's a Pro Bowler, but I think he could be a starter for this team in the not too distant future. And I think that would be a huge outcome. Like when you look at what this team needs going forward, like they have a bunch of positions that don't have long-term answers right now. They picked up the 5th year on Najee Harris. Pat Freiermuth doesn't have a deal. James Daniels doesn't have a deal. Cam Hayward doesn't have a deal. They even with Cam Hayward, they probably need another defensive lineman, right, long-term. And if they could check off they don't have a number 2 wide receiver right now, let alone one in the future. If they could check off number 2 corner from that list and be like, we developed our own, that would be a huge outcome for this team in their ability to, check off boxes in the draft over the up next coming years. If number 2 corner is not on that list after Dante Jackson moves on, then that's just huge. And I think the potential is there. So I'll put him at number 3, and I'm pretty happy with that list.
I hear you there. I would have put Joey Porter Jr. as my number 1 simply because I agree with you. I think he's on the cusp of being that already. I think that, but I also think that there's a lot of people that don't necessarily see him as a playmaker yet. And last year, I think he got his feet under him, and he got his feet under him quickly. And then he was kind of still learning the speed of the game while doing very well at doing that. Now this year, if he's able to excel, if he's able to turn more of those times where the ball was kind of thrown in his direction and he was able to deny the ball into interceptions, into those type of plays, and especially if the Steelers defense is stopping the run a lot more consistently, which puts the teams in 3rd and long, which makes them a little more risky, that could be what changes everything. Like I think it's very. There's a lot of prophetic things that I think could come away, or a lot of deja vu that could happen if you see a guy wearing number 24 shutting down number 1 wide receivers as the Steelers' top cornerback. Granted, Joey Porter Jr. is a high 2nd round pick compared to Ike Taylor, who was a 4th round pick, but still, that would be a lot of just like, funny how life works like that. If he was able to pull that off, and that's where I think Joey Porter Jr. can be that guy a lot sooner than people realize. And I think there's a lot of people that don't, like, outside of Pittsburgh, don't see that in him just yet. Keeanu Benton's my number 2 because I've loved Keeanu Benton ever since I started watching tape on him in the draft process. I was like, ooh, this guy's a Steeler. He fits exactly what he's going to need to polish his pass rush moves, but man, he stuffs the run well. And when he gets this pass rush stuff down, he's going to be a problem. And you're right. If he develops that, because that's the other thing. If Keeanu Benton does develop into a real interior pass rush threat this year, remember all that problems we was just talking about, how like, oh, they need someone else to rush the passer up front. That's gone because now you got a young dude who can do that for years to come. They're set there.
That's kind of why I picked him first, because like I feel like the potential for the impact on the team is so great, you know?
Agreed entirely there. My third, though, is going in with a direction. It's not necessarily a young player, but I'm going with Deshaun Elliott because I really think Deshaun Elliott has the potential as a strong safety to do so many things for the Steelers, whether it comes to stuffing the run, helping cover tight ends, helping cover the flat, being a versatile, strong safety who can help in the box, and finally let Minkah Fitzpatrick get back to being Minkah Fitzpatrick. And that, to me, is one of the not stated enough important goals of this season. I know that Minkah Fitzpatrick can be versatile. I know that he is an asset wherever he is on the field, and that's great. But, man, you let him get back to just being that guy that can just play in the back part of the defense, line up wherever he wants, and he gets to be the X factor turnover guy. That makes this defense turn from very good to elite, in my opinion. And if Deshaun Elliott simply does that as being a strong safety who doesn't get beat on big plays, helps, in the run game, and allows Minkah to do that, those 3 things, I think, give the chance for the Steelers to be an elite defense again in 2024, and also set the tone for them to keep carrying this thing forward into 2025 and beyond. Because again, they have Cam Hayward, he's up there. TJ Watt's getting up there. Like TJ Watt, now he's still in his prime, but he might only have 1 to 3 more years of being quote unquote in his prime, which kind of puts urgency in the sense like, hey, it's great to have the best edge rusher in football, the best defender in football, but you need to find someone else who's going to step up and start taking on the star mentality of that. And if they can find even just one of those things this year, that's what makes this defense great. And then again, we've been talking a lot of the offense, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, new offensive line, new everything right there. If they can just be middle of the road while the defense does something like that, that has the chance to be a serious threat in the AFC.
I think so. And I think that's what the Steelers want it to be. And I think that's how they want to build it. And so we'll see if they're able to. I think they've got some good pieces. I'm not sure they have would you be surprised if they're a top 10 defense again this year? Because
I would not be. I'm predicting them to be a top 10 defense.
I think so too.
Absolutely. He's Alan Saunders from SteelersNow.com. Alan, thanks so much for joining us. Let people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Oh, well, I didn't write anything for a week. So there's 2 stories at 3 stories at SteelersNow.com that are mine that you can go check out. Maybe there'll be 4th by the time this is released. We'll see. And then, just check out the site. Obviously, Nick Faribaugh, Derek Bell, the whole team there do great work. So go check it out.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We'll see you tomorrow.